like a voice in my head with that eerie echo, you're lost. If you were to die, you are without Christ. If you were to die today, you would face God's punishment for your sin. You would face eternity in hell. My parents were pursuing the American dream and trying to get as much as they could and enjoy life as much as they could. When they were searching for a babysitter for my sister, they met someone who claimed to be a born-again Christian. They didn't exactly know what that was, but it didn't seem like it was a bad thing. So this lady began watching my sister, and she invited my parents to Lehigh Valley Baptist Church. And the very first time they went, they heard a preacher talking about the need for individuals to be born again, to receive Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. And they were religious, but never heard of that before. Within a week, both of them were born again, and their lives were completely changed. And that was only a year before I was born. So because of that, I was born into a home that most people would consider very religious. We were in church all the time. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Because of what God had done in my parents' life, they wanted to raise us in that environment. And for me growing up, I wanted to be that. I wanted to be everything that my mom and dad wanted me to be. The people at church, I wanted to be what they wanted me to be. And so most of my growing up years were just trying to fulfill that expectation on my life. Part of that was the idea, all right, you're supposed to have a time and a place where you pray and you tell God you're a sinner and you put your faith in Jesus. And so I had multiple times where I did that. But I never really understood what that meant. It wasn't until I was about 15 years old and we had a summer youth camp that our church took a bunch of teens to. It's actually all the way out in the middle of nowhere in Missouri. And we went all the way out there, and I remember the very first night, we had chapel preaching services every night. And the preacher got up, and basically what he talked about was the idea of living a lie, like putting yourself forward as something, pretending to be something. Maybe you really want to be that, but inside there's something missing. And I realized what he was describing was me, that there was something missing in my life, that I was trying to portray myself as a Christian, but I had never responded to the gospel for myself. And I realized that night that I was indeed lost. I was not saved. I had never been born again like I had led everyone else to believe was the case. That had never happened. I was so afraid to respond that night to the message because I thought about what are other people going to think and what I make of all this. But in the next 24 hours, I really understood. See, before, I didn't really understand. It didn't really. It was real up here, but it wasn't real in my heart. It was like a voice in my head with that eerie echo. You're lost. If you were to die, you are without Christ. If you were to die today, you would face God's punishment for your sin. You would face eternity in hell. And that was a haunting experience for that day. And the very next night, I remember we went back to chapel, and of course, there had been only one thing on my mind all day, and that was what I was struggling with. And that night, I remember after the message, I went forward to the front and I repented of my sins and put my faith in Jesus as my only hope. And that was a watershed moment because everything changed. Before, it was just, here's what I'm supposed to do because I was raised to do those things. And now it was real. There's no other way to describe it. It was the real thing. My desire to do the things that I wanted to do, it came from the fact that God had changed my heart. And because of that, God has led me in the path that He wants me to go, and I want to follow Him. I want to do whatever He wants me to do. And one of those things that God wanted for me was to give my life to Him full time, to be a preacher of the gospel, and that's what I've given my life to follow that calling.